Welcome to Camp Interview. My name is Indigo. I am pianist and president of the Contemporary Art Music Project. And today I have my co-host Indigo Connect here and Joseph Bourdeau, composer Joseph Bourdeau. So we'll just introduce ourselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Indigo Connect. I'm assistant director for camp and campground, and I'm super excited to talk to some new composers.
I'm Joseph Bourdeau. I'm a new composer. I'm super excited to talk to y'all too. I'm living in Los Angeles right now, doing a lot of work with multimedia things and composition. Still teaching a whole lot, so looking forward to talking to y'all.
Yeah. So Joseph is one of our winners for the 2026 Camp's Special House Installation Project, A Little House Music. So Joseph will be working with the other um, three composers selected with the project director Anthony Green. So we're super excited to collaborate with Joseph and yeah, we usually start with a little bit of your history with music and our path also cross. So I think we can talk about it again. It's been, a long time since I saw you, right? So yeah, how did you get into actually music composition and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, that's right. It has been a long time. I was in like a lot of kids. I was in band when I was in middle school. I started playing the bass clarinet and had a really good time with that. As I was doing that, I was playing a lot of drum set, doing the whole sort of like high school rock and roll band thing for a long time. And so I had these sort of two ways into music when I was younger, playing drums with in those kind of situations, and then playing bass clarinet in the band. Those were very, very different. I eventually sort of came around and ended up playing percussion entirely because it was hard to audition for colleges as a bass clarinet player. And I couldn't, I had a lot of fun marching drums in high school. And so I was looking for a way to do that. So I ended up going to University of South Florida for my undergrad. I was a music ed student at first, and then I sort of became a composition student later. I added that degree in my second year, and it made everything a little bit chaotic with my schedule and my finishing my time to degree and all of that. But I started really doing composition a lot more seriously then. And then after I was done with my undergrad in Tampa, I moved out to La Jolla. I was doing a master's and then a PhD at UC San Diego. Did a really was able to focus more on composition there and sort of not have to divide my time quite as much as doing the dual degrees and also teaching and all the things that I was doing over there. I was still teaching over here, but it wasn't dual degrees, and so that was nice. Finished up just about 2 years ago now, ish, and have been living in Los Angeles. I've been living in Studio City since then. So it was a pretty uh, I think a route to music that's probably typical for a lot of people in the US that start in band and dabble in other things, and it all sort of comes together in different ways for different people, which is kind of the thing that I've had a lot of fun exploring with my music since then.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was probably last year, your last year when I came to USF, start teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I
yeah, it wasn't very much time. I remember
don't know.
just being leaving for California as a lot of the sort of new music project and things were starting to fire up over there that y'all were doing.
Yeah. So I mean, in the beginning years, like Bartender Second was teaching at the
Mhm.
time, and uh, because I'm the new person on the faculty, so they would like, oh, you have to come to this, different concerts. So I would attend composers concerts, and at the time, New Music Consortium had
Mhm.
concerts, and it was actually you guys put a concert pretty often.
Mhm.
I remember, but it was pretty frequent. And it was all crazy stuff. I mean,
That's right. Yeah.
and all this like crazy things happening, and I was like, wow, this is wild. This is really fun, and I mean, even something very, very avant-garde looking and theatrical. Um, one of other composers and also worked for Cab, Sean Hamilton. That
Mhm.
like he would play Mark Applebaum, and
Hmm.
that was almost my first time actually listening to that music, and um, but everybody was doing something really crazy, and
Mhm.
that's
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really, I think that my time at USF felt really special in terms of both like you're saying, the frequency with the opportunities with which we were able to put on shows. There was a lot of that that was really nice. And in terms of being a composition student there as an undergrad, it was really structured in a way that helped you learn certain skills about talking with performers and putting on a show and all of these things that were sort of more than just writing the piece, right? So I think that that was something that I agree it was really special, and it was also very special in terms of like you're saying just how interesting some of those concerts were, right? Some of the stuff that people would play. I remember they did a show at a warehouse in St. Pete. I don't think it's still a venue anymore. Where they played Freddie Howe remix, right? There was some Applebaum on that show that I definitely remember seeing that in the warehouse. So yeah, it was definitely my time there really felt like I got to see some special things. I agree.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have that menu anymore. That's a shame. But yeah, there was this both kind of concert going on campus and off
Mhm.
campus, which was really fantastic. And the other day, Kevin Von Kampen and I were just talking about, and you came up and that he still remembers this one performance by you that like shocked everybody.
Yeah, I did have one or two of those. My performances tend to be loud, and I mean, gosh, even sitting here talking into the Zoom microphone, I'm probably very loud, and so there's a lot of vocals and a lot of volume, a lot of chaotic stuff. Especially at the time, I was really enjoying those kind of things a lot. I'm not sure if I can say that it's toned down very much, but maybe it has a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, we've seen your work through your application to this project, and definitely there's like this intensity and also emotional intensity. So I'm very excited to work with you for this project, and people ask me that should we tone down or should we filter ourselves, and I usually go no, no, you should go forward. You should go actually more with that. So I'm really excited about your proposal and how you will turn this environment, somebody's house, into something else. So yeah, can you share your proposal and how this is going with us?
Yeah. Yeah, well, first of all, thank y'all. I'm excited to take a look at everything too, right? I think that it's a really interesting because, you were saying, there's a certain sort of emotional aspect to a lot of my work, and I think that homes can be very like emotional places. Obviously, they're places that you live in, parts of your life sort of move through a home. A home sort of moves through time in a particular way, and so all of these things are really central to the kind of like emotional landscape that a person builds up around themselves. And so I think that those are kind of things that I'm really interested in sort of bringing into this space, especially because it's your home, Eunmi, so that adds another sort of level to lots of things. I think there's a certain kind of like obviously bravery, receptiveness that you're showing to doing something like this. I think there's a certain level of like respect with which I want to approach the situation. I think it's a very unique situation for all of those reasons. So I'm really excited about it. I think that a lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of what I've been interested in lately has to do with sort of multimedia work and audiovisual things of this kind of nature. So I think that the landscape of sort of sounds and images that also exist within a home are something that's really interesting to me. So not only how people and performers might like move through that space, but also how things like the television or the radio sort of come in and out of that space, or can sometimes dominate that space or slip into the background and things of that nature. It's also interesting because it's such a house is such a uh, like a multi-level sonic environment too. You know, you think about like I think especially, you know, now saying vacuuming with the TV on is like dated. Right now I sound old, you know what I mean? But people do all kinds of more things at the same time than that, you know. And so I think that this idea of also sort of maybe the emphasizing what can be this sort of like almost cacophonous plurality of things that happen in a home are things that I'm really interested in. Um, I don't want to give too terribly much away than that, other than to say that, yeah, I'm going to be doing some fun things with TVs. I'm going to be doing some fun things with radios. Hoping to be doing some fun things with a couple of live performers, still hammering out the details on some things. Uh, Gonna get to hear Eunmi work on some things. It's gonna be a lot of fun, I think. But I think that you really hit the nail on the head as far as this sort of like emotional responses to things like this in a home landscape is something that I'm really interested in. I think maybe the last thing that I'll throw out there about it is that one of the things that really comes through my work in a lot of ways is taking everyday or familiar things and making these sort of very big surreal collections out of them. And so where the sum is not necessarily more than the parts, but much stranger than the parts. And so I think that again, a home is such a great opportunity to do that because there's so much stuff around, and there's a lot of I think interesting opportunities there, both in terms of like memories and more abstract stuff, and also like concrete stuff like the blender and the kitchen floor and things like that. So I think that that sort of creative impetus that I have to bring these sort of surreal or these sort of mundane everyday things together into a more sort of like surreal heterogeneous situation is something that I think is definitely going to come through in this project.
Cool. Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah. Thanks for the spoiler alert.
That's right. Yeah.
Make sure.
I like surprises, so I can't, you know, there's gonna be some surprises. Uh,
Yeah, like that. Yeah, cool.
I I definitely appreciate that personally. One thing that really stuck out about your proposal to me was just not well your proposal and the works that you submitted as references was just your work with multimedia. Um, do you have any current projects going on or that are multimedia or maybe some pieces you can tell us about that you have recordings of that maybe we could do some listening to?
yeah, absolutely. So I did a really fun project earlier this year with a collaborator, composer, performer that I work with a lot named Anchi Leo, who also is living up here right now, living up near Pasadena. So we did a project with a group called Project Blank in San Diego that does a lot of cool new music concerts, a lot of cool art shows and things like that. So we were really lucky to be able to do a sort of multimedia installation with a performance element for them. So we were able to set up over a weekend and do sort of an installation, and then we were able to perform like in front of the installation one of the evenings as a duo. That was a lot of fun and a lot of multimedia. What we did, and I'll send you some pictures of this, you can slap some pictures up here.
Yeah.
But we had some. We took 5 channels of. We made 5 channels of pre-recorded video, and played them back on different kinds of monitors. We had two like big old-fashioned 4x3 CRTVs, and then we had a couple of flat screen 16:9 like HD style TVs, and then we had one old 4x3 like computer monitor. And so all of these different kind of screens were displaying these sort of different videos at the same time. The video that we took for that was similar to sort of what I was just describing. Anchi and I both took videos of us walking to the 7-Eleven that's by my apartment, or of her like trying to get her cats off the table, and of her just sort of testing audio and like watching her filming her cat run around. You know, the cat was a big help in this piece. You ever want people to clap, put a cat in it. I'll tell you what. But so we it was these 5 channels of video that were playing this. sort of mundane audio that had been sort of edited and processed in sort of surprising psychedelic ways. And so things were both very everyday and also had this very sort of colorful, weird kind of bend to them. When we played back the installation, Anchi made some really wonderful synthesizer improvisation. She's a modular synthesizer player, and she made some really wonderful improvisations that like went with the audio of the pre-recorded videos and sort of again had this nice intermingling of very mundane sounds of like footsteps on the sidewalk and these very sort of otherworldly modular synth sounds. Um, what I'd like to share a video with y'all of is the sort of live performance component that we did because I think it gives a good idea of how the whole thing worked. What I decided to do for the documentation of this live performance was to take both the live footage where we performed the together as a duo and sort of intercut this with some of these videos that I've just described from the installation. So what we ended up with documentation is something very different than what you would have seen in a live situation, but watching a video on Vimeo or something is very different than a live situation anyway. And so I think that kind of leaning into that and making something new out of the documentation that we could really share in a different environment was something that we wanted to explore as well. It's in terms of the musical content, it's a sort of a structured improvisation. We had, beats and stopwatch markers of things that we kind of wanted to get to and played down. She's like I said, a modular synthesizer player. So a lot of what she did was based on feedback modules that she was using and very heavy reverb modules and things like that she's very interested in. A lot of what I was doing was things like live sampling off a vinyl record player and playing the pitch pipes. And I tend to perform, because of my background as a percussionist, especially in new music, I tend to perform with just a bunch of stuff sort of spread out on a blanket. So it was a little bit of recorder and a little bit of voice and a little bit of pitch pipes and a little bit of a lot of things. So that performance ended up being, that project altogether ended up being a lot of fun and really what we were sort of experimenting with by bringing all these different images and sounds together was a lot of things that have to do with maybe the unreliability of memory or the way that, as artists, we synthesize lots of things that happen to us every day into lots of different kinds of sort of surreal experiences and sort of literalizing that idea and playing with that idea in a way that we felt like was idiomatic to our own practice was really something that we wanted to explore. So I'd love to share a video of that live performance with y'all. It's probably got some flashing images in it, so heads up if you have a sensitivity to flashing images. I'm sure that there's some in there. But that was a very fun recent audiovisual project. I'm sorry, I rambled a lot. That's what you asked me about,
Oh
right?
no, that's okay. Let's take a moment to just watch and listen to the video.
Absolutely.
You mentioned you had another video project, one that was, my understanding was it's more set in stone. So this was like more of an improvisatory performance. This previous video that we've just watched.
Yeah.
Tell us about this other project you've mentioned.
Yeah, this was another fun piece. I'm going to say that about all the pieces because they always are. A piece that I wrote for Dan Lapel as part of a residency that he did at UC San Diego when I was there. It's been a year or two ago now. And it's a piece for electric guitar and feedback sort of loops that I put together in Ableton. So a lot of what I do when I work with electronic music lately has either been sampling or working with feedback in different ways to make these sort of ambient, like evolving textures. And so this piece ended up being a guitar piece that has some very active guitar playing that's really sort of idiomatic to the electric guitar itself. It has some moments of much sort of spacier, more open playing with harmonics and things that sort of let the feedback do some work with the sounds. One thing I was really interested in with this piece was exploiting the fact that the same pitch can be gotten with different temperaments, with different harmonics on the guitar. And so using that as a way to sort of excite the feedback to behave in certain ways was something I was interested in. Another fun thing fact about this piece is there's some text in the first movement, as there, like I think I mentioned earlier, there often is in my pieces. There's some text in this first movement where I guess there are still some improvised elements because there's some text where I asked Dan to just bring something that was very boring and sort of procedural and read it as part of the piece. And he had the terrible misfortune of having his checked bags lost on his way into California to come see us. So he was reading like the baggage claim policy for whatever airline he was flying on. So it was again maybe an example of these like mundane things working their way into new situations. The piece also does have some maybe I'll splash some of the score up for this one. This piece goes also sort of in between things that are very strictly notated and then things that sort of have the performer either take an established texture and continue it in their own way or do some things with box notation or free repetitions or things like that. So it's much more notated, but there's still, as often happens in a lot of my pieces, a lot of room for interpretation and for the performers to sort of insert their own personality into the piece. I find sometimes that my personality in pieces is really strong to the extent that it can be irritating. And so I think that trying to consciously leave a little bit of room for other people to sort of interact with that in a way makes me feel a little bit better about it, maybe.
Well, I would love to see this or performance, so let's play it right now.
Yeah, and one thing I should say before we do play it is unfortunately you cannot see the performance because the video that we shot during the day did not come out so great. So what you're going to see is again some video that I've put together of using video feedback and things like this that I use when I make visuals, sort of similar to what I did with the piece I just described to y'all. So unfortunately we don't get to see Dan. We're going to have to see abstract visuals, but they're still a lot of fun.
That's still great. Let's watch it.
trackmysuitcase.com, trackmyroadie.com.
So you've mentioned that you currently teach. Where do you teach right now?
I'm so I'm teaching analytical writing at UC San Diego. So I'm a writing teacher right now. Um, Teaching mostly things like academic arguments and evidence gathering and assessment of conversations and things like that with mostly students who are sort of early on in their undergrad process. We can cut all this if you want to. It doesn't have anything to do with music, and I
Oh
don't
no,
have any follow-up
I was
about
just
it, but I teach writing.
no, I was just curious about how maybe your practice just as an artist translates to your teaching. Um, do you kind of have any overlap between, I mean, I consider when I teach like part of my everyday, so I
Mhm.
was, especially since you focus on the everyday in a lot of your music, I was just curious about how how has that been for your compositional process? Has it had any effects for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I so a couple things. Like I said, when I started off in undergrad, I was a music education major. So teaching was maybe the thing I cared first about, and it's still a thing that I care a lot about, right? So I think that it is definitely something that is the way that I approach teaching affects the way that I approach lots of other things in my life. It's a big part of my life, you know. Um, and it's a I think that one way in which it's you can really tell maybe a relation between my teaching and my compositional practice is that I how do I want to say this? I like to explain things, and so very often there's a lot of sort of unambiguous stuff in a lot of my pieces. Lots of things happen that just sort of are what they are. There's a lot of jokes with punchlines that like I hope that the audience can sort of pick up on and things, you know. And so I think that there's a communicative aspect to teaching, right, where you're communicating ideas in a way that you hope is very clear to people. You're having a conversation with people about those ideas and trying to come to some kind of like understanding in a certain kind of environment. I think that music in a concert hall is often a lot less dialogic than a classroom. You don't get that kind of stuff. But I think that I do like to try to approach situations in a way that feels like I'm uh, expressing myself clearly and inviting everyone to be part of a process that they sort of feel like they can understand and get their heads around and enjoy, right? Um, That's maybe not such a clear answer, and it's
Oh,
maybe not a clear answer that's going to come across in the recordings even necessarily, because I'm sure there's some things in those recordings that are quite confusing. But I think that it's the idea that people feel like they're a part of a community and feel like they have an understanding of what's going on and a stake in what's being discussed, I think is something that is important to me in both environments in a big way.
I absolutely agree. One of the things I've noticed about just each composer has submitted such a different proposal for the installation project, but at the same time, you all seem to have this through line of how do we engage and how do we kind of reformat what is a concert experience? Um, do you have any like other thoughts about the concert experience itself, whether it's in our traditional concert hall setting or how you approach these situations? You've told us a little bit, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious about um what do you want the audience to think, I guess?
Yeah, totally. And that's always a scary question, right? Who
Yeah.
knows, you know. But also I do have an idea, you know, like I just said, so it's a sort of weird kind of gray area. I think that concert spaces, concert hall spaces, like traditional concert hall spaces, can be I'll say it again, can be a lot of fun because people go into them with a lot of expectations about what they're supposed to do and what they're supposed to see. And so I think that there's fun ways in which you can sort of start something out going along with the expectation and then sort of take it in different directions that is sort of relies on a space like that where people have very clear expectations about what's going to happen and this is the stage and this is the, you know. So I think that working, you know, I mentioned earlier surprises, and so working on things where things that are very surprising that you might not expect to happen in a concert hall happens. I've done things with fake audience members that cause disturbance and like leave pieces. I've done pieces with fake, well, not fake, with offstage singers that aren't credited until the end, and so you have this sort of like weird ambiguity as to what's happening off stage until a certain moment in the piece. I have pieces that say they're for one instrument and then other instruments start joining it. So there's lots of things with sort of surprises that I think are well suited to an environment like that where people feel like they know what they're supposed to expect, right? That being said, I think a lot of what I've done recently in the last year or so has really not relied on that space or that technique so much. I think a lot of these multimedia things, like this installation I was just talking about that I did with Anchilio, that was shown in a Episcopal church with like marble floors and big high ceilings, and we were off in like uh, the end of like a big hallway. So you stood at the end of a big hallway and looked down and saw these TVs in the distance, and it was really something that needed that space to sort of be able to interact with it in the way that people did. Um, I think that even performing in a space like that, especially in a space like that where people were aware that like earlier in the day this was an art installation and now there are people here playing, sort of sets a different set of expectations that's maybe a little bit more loose and maybe you can do more in that situation that's not going to be perceived as like jarring or very different from what people expected, right? Because they have less of a clear idea of what to expect, maybe. Although some people are going to have a very clear idea of what to expect in the back of an Episcopal church, right? And so it's there's always I think interesting things with the spaces that you play in. So I guess my answer to that is both that I think there's a lot of fun stuff to be done in concert halls still, and I think that I've also though enjoyed what I perceive as lots of opportunities lately and lots of sort of musicians and artists working on things lately that don't rely on those spaces necessarily as much. Uh, and there's lots of reasons for that, right? It's expensive,
Yeah.
it's complicated, and it's also a lot of fun. So, it's a little of everything.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I personally love about camp, and campground especially, is our where where we have our different performances. Again, your house installation will be in Eunmi's house,
Mhm.
so we're really excited to see what surprises you throw at us in that setting. Um,
Yeah, me too. I'm sure there's some surprises for me to find for myself here still.
yeah, especially once you actually get to go visit and explore the space.
Yeah, that's right. And that's something I'm really excited about with this whole opportunity, right? Is it feels like sometimes it can be very difficult to actually get into a space and see what's going on and be able to let that inform what you're working on, right? And so I think that's something that's really exciting about this project.
Yeah. Well, we still have a long ways before we hear your installation and experience it. So, what upcoming projects do you have now, or anything potentially that we can tune in via live stream, or if anyone listening's in the LA area?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things that I'm working on right now. Most of them are a little bit farther off than to be that concrete. I'm looking forward to releasing a recording I made. Gosh, also a while ago now for Inset, a trio that I met in San Diego. They recorded a piece of mine called "This Way Forever" about a year and a half ago now, and that's a big piece with a lot of video editing and tons of stuff. So working on that right now. Looking forward to being able to release that soon. So that'll be a YouTube drop or something somewhere. I've also been, starting on the rumblings of working on a band piece again, which is very exciting. That's so far away that I can't talk about it very much, but I'm very excited to be actually getting to work on a little bit of band music for the first time in a very long time. And then the last thing that I'll say a little bit about is that my wife, Ilana Waniuk, does a lot of work with live visuals. She does live projection work and a lot of like digital projection work and things like that. So we've also been working on doing a couple things for like semi-improvised visuals with performance with live performer. So that's something that's very sort of early in the works. We're getting some things together, but you can definitely look out. There'll be some links coming for that in the future too. We're looking forward to finally getting to make some recordings and put some things out there. So more audio visual stuff
Awesome.
and maybe a band piece.
Well, keep us co-posted. We would love to share the links here and in our social media. So yeah, keep us updated, especially with
Absolutely.
the
Yeah, thank y'all.
release of your recording. If that's coming up soon, we'll make sure everyone knows.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share it with y'all.
Awesome, thank you.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, such different music, band piece and uh
Yeah, that's right. A band piece with a key signature and everything, where
A
it's
key
really a
signature.
far-flung sort of, yeah. But that's a place I haven't been in a while, so looking forward to it.
Any inspiration from your bass clarinet days?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Now, unfortunately, I think that I'm not going to be writing a bass clarinet part for this one, so I'm going to have to sort of work it into a tenor sax or something, I think. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
yeah, very cool. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like when you talk about going back a little bit about the concert hall experience and specific venues for music, um, there's some psychology, I think, that you kind of rely on or you are aware of between the audience and kind of a space and expectation. Like people usually have certain expectation for certain venues. So there's definitely, I see that there's that playing with psychology or playing with expectation.
Yeah, and I think on some sense that ties back to this idea of things where mundane experiences that sort of become surreal in a certain way, or something where you think you know what to expect that is suddenly much different than that. So I think that there's also a common thread there. Maybe that's this interest in the concert hall is part of the way that that sort of expresses in that setting. But yeah, I think it's really important. It's one thing to sort of move the notes around and sort of listen to the sound in a vacuum. And I think it's another thing to think about, like people playing a thing in a room in a space with other people listening to it. I think it can really change the way that you think about the pieces that you're writing. That's something Balginer said to me once is like, oh, don't close your eyes and listen to your piece. Like close your eyes and imagine someone having to stand there and play it. And it's like, oh yeah, that makes a big difference, you know. And I think you can keep widening that to the people that are sitting there listening to it or whoever you want to think about, you know.
Cool. Yeah. Very exciting. Yeah, Indigo, you have anything you want to add or ask?
Um, I don't think so. Do you?
I think I'm fine. Yeah, Joseph, you have anything that you
Yeah.
talk about?
I don't think so. I feel like those were great questions. Y'all, I talked a lot. I'm sorry for that.
Oh no, that's what we wanted. This is supposed to be your time.
Oh, that makes me even more nervous.
Oh no, you did great.
No, no, I
Um,
appreciate it. No, I'm good. Thank y'all.